All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're on season 2, episode 2. We have another banger of a podcast on today. This guy, played at the highest levels and played a couple years in the majors. Also, kind of came up through the farm system and, even went over and played in Japan as well. And, it's incredible to kind of see this talent come out of Porterville. And, he's coached at different levels, high school level, college level as well. And we're excited to bring him on today. Please welcome Mr. Steve Cox.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Steve. So before every single episode, we like to get the juices flowing with the mental minute questions.
Okay.
So to start us off, I wanted to ask you, as growing up, from young to middle to even now, who are some of your idols?
So in the baseball world, growing up as a first baseman, Don Mattingly. When I was a kid, we had one of those big satellites, and we got the Yankees channel back when I was like, 6th grade or so. So I got to watch a lot of Yankees games as a kid growing up, and Don Mattingly was my guy. Dwight Gooden was also my guy. And then as I got into high school, Fred McGriff was one of my guys. So fortunately, I got to actually play with 2 out of 3 of those guys. I never got to meet Mattingly, but I got to play with Fred for close to 3 years, who was just inducted in the Hall of Fame last weekend, which was awesome. And Dwight Gooden, I got to play with Dwight Gooden for about a month or so. He came as a free agent in 2001 to Tampa from Houston. So it was kind of cool playing with those guys.
Were you a Yankees fan growing up?
No, I was a Dodger fan growing up.
Fan,
but
okay.
I just like baseball, and we had the Yankees channel, right? And so we got to watch a lot of the Yankees games.
Yeah, what you get, what you got.
Exactly.
Yeah, back then, you only got select channels,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Obviously, you spent a lot of time in clubhouses and things like that. What's your most memorable moment, either traveling on the road or like in a clubhouse with the guys and your teammates?
For me, the clubhouse was more of like the road was more fun than the clubhouse. The clubhouse is like the preparation before the game, right? You're only in a clubhouse to get ready for the game. So, you have that kind of not stress, but kind of like the excitement, the anxiety of a game. So the clubhouse for me was more a place to get ready, not more of a place to just go and have a bunch of good times. Right. The plane rides were fun. I mean, the best part, and you could talk to any ex-player, the best part, the part they miss the most, they're not going to say the plane. They're not going to say, competing is good, but I mean, the plane rides, the bus rides, man, that's where the fun is. Playing cards after a game, there's some big pots on those planes too, man.
I can imagine.
It was pretty fun. But
that's cool.
One specific memory. There's probably something I can't really speak on here, but
sure.
it was a good time for sure.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So like Blaine mentioned in the beginning, you played at the highest level, right? But what was your approach in the batter's box? And I'm sure it changed quite often,
for sure.
right? But more or less, what was your approach in the batter's box?
So if I start from a high school years, I probably didn't have an approach. You're better than the talent there, and you perform, right? And once you get into professional baseball, you better come up with an approach because you're facing really good players every single day. And once you get to the major league level, that's when people try to say the hardest jump in pro ball is from like A ball to double A. It's not even close. Getting to the big leagues, the adjustment you make in the big leagues is the toughest. And you have to simplify your approach. And you hear a lot of people, some guys are guess hitters, some guys do this. Most people, they sit fastball right down the middle 100% of the time, and they allow to adjust off of that fastball. If you think about it, guys are throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour now. If I'm looking for anything else other than a fastball, I'm not going to hit the fastball, right? I'm not going to be able to react to it. So look fastball, look down the middle, 17-inch plate. I only have to adjust a little way either side if I'm looking for a fastball down the middle, and then you learn to adjust off a breaking pitch,
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you've got to keep it simple, man.
Yeah,
you have to.
Kind of having, like doing the little things right, having a base point for that fastball and then building off that.
And every now and then you get a little wonky as a hitter. Like this guy's throwing me a lot of sliders, or he's throwing me a lot of curveballs. I'm going to sit. And then next thing you know, he throws a fastball down the middle and you're late on it, right? And so it's like, that's my bread and butter. So why am I going to sit on something that's not my bread and butter? I need to look fastball. I need to adjust off of that. And you have a mental bank, right? I'll see a guy throw a fastball, he'll follow up with a slider, and you can kind of see how it comes out of his hand. And I'm like, okay, if he throws me that with 2 strikes, now I'm going to be able to adjust to that a little easier. But I'm sitting dead red pretty much early in the count.
Right.
Steve, with baseball, it's a long process going through the farm systems like that, and there's a lot of I don't necessarily call it failure, but like those low points, things like that. So how like were you able to respond and adapt and learn from those like failures, those low points, and be able to kind of adapt and overcome those things to eventually reach the highest level?
So baseball is all about managing your failures. The game is designed for you to fail, right? That's what it's designed, especially a position player, a hitter. It's designed for you to not do well. You'll have 500-600 plate appearances during the course of the year. You might get a couple 150 hits. Every time you get out, you're upset. It's not like you get used to it, right? But it's a matter of just being able to move on, maybe taking a little piece from each at bat, and sometimes you just got to wash it, flush it down the toilet, and let's go on to the next one. But I spent a lot of time in the minor leagues. I spent 8 seasons in the minor leagues. I was drafted when I was 17 years old. I didn't make it to the big leagues till I was 24, right? And I had some really good minor league years, and I had some pretty bad minor league years. That consistency for me at a young age was pretty hard. I went from hitting 230 one year with 11 home runs to 298 with 30 home runs the next year, right? That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
The next year I kind of slid off. The next year I went back. So, I mean, you can't get too up. You can't get too down. It's a freaking grind, man. In the minor leagues, 140 games in 144 days. Think about that. You get 4 days off. We would have bus rides in AA, 12-hour bus rides. We'd leave at 11 o'clock at night, get in 11 o'clock in the morning, and play that evening. Right? It's they've changed kind of the system now, which they probably should have. I think they get every Monday off now. We had 4 days off the whole year.
It's just a grind, like you said.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's just a grind.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's that grind, and you're not playing for really money too much at that point. I think it's changed a little bit today.
It just changed.
Like last year.
I made $800 a month my first year for 5 months, and you can't collect unemployment in the off season. $800 a month is what you made. Yeah, It's crazy. My next year was $1,000 a month. So in the minor leagues back then, in the 90s, early 2000s, you weren't making any money at all.
Were you hustling on the side with anything, or was it just baseball?
Fortunately, I had a signing bonus that was able to kind of get me through, and my parents would still help me out.
Gotcha.
My dad gave me a credit card and like, hey, if you ever, you use this when you need to, type of thing.
Right.
But not everyone had that luxury.
Yeah.
How are most of the guys making? Just kind of
same way I did. Yeah.
Parents, some of them just scraping by.
A lot of them scraping by.
Live small.
Yeah. It was tough. There were some guys that did some things that they probably shouldn't to get by. I mean, there was some eating and running. I heard stories, there was some crazy stuff, man.
I bet.
The minor league life was a tough one.
It's almost inevitable though, right?
For sure.
I mean, it's
when you can't eat.
Right.
Yeah.
To bounce off, this type of question right here, about, baseball being designed, you're going to fail more than you succeed. Obviously I'm sure you've had slumps. Mm-hmm. You have any funny stories of how you got out of slump?
That's a good question. You know what? I never had like 5-day slumps where I didn't get a hit in 5 days. I've never had that. I would get a hit, not a hit for 2 days, get 2 hits, not a hit for 2 days. I'd do that, but I never went like a 14-day period without it. Right. I don't think my whole career I ever did.
Long stretch type of thing.
I never had long stretches. Now, I would do some things when I had a hitting streak going. It's a different story, man. I wore the same pair of underwear for 23 days straight one time.
There it is. There it is.
23 days straight. Hey. That's a good hitting streak. Yeah. And then I went 0 for 4, and I had an 18-game hitting streak right after that. So that was a good run.
Hey, it is what it is. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
So let's kind of bring it back a little bit. Where did you first find your love for baseball?
Had to been as a kid. My dad played junior college baseball. My brother played baseball. Growing up in our house, we always played baseball, right? I think I played organized baseball since I was like 3 or 4 years old. So it's always been something we did. We'd go to Dodger games as kids. But when you're young, I didn't think about being a major league player when I was 10, 12 years old, not even close. I just wouldn't have out with my friends and as I got a little bit older, I got a little bit better. And then I'm like, maybe there is something here, but we can go into that.
Right.
I was never like,
that's going to be me right there.
No, never until never. I mean, I was 13 years old. I didn't want to go to the games. I wanted to skateboard with my friends, and my dad's like, no, dude, you signed up for this. You're going to continue. Now, once I got into high school, like between my junior and senior year, I got a lot better. And that's when I realized, man, I might be able to do this. And that's where kind of the obsession came for me. But It wasn't from a young age at all. Mm-hmm. Not at all. I was never pushed. It was like, go have fun. That was kind of how I was brought up.
So, when did you say sophomore, junior? When did you say when you start to like, okay, this is serious business for me now?
In between my junior and senior year.
Is it because did you hit a growth spurt or what was it that just made it that?
So what happened was, I was fortunate to come up in Monache when we had some really good baseball players. Like my junior year in high school, there were 6 guys that either played Division I baseball or played pro ball. You won't see that again, right? And I don't think we'd seen that before that time. I was on an all-star team, like a Central Valley all-star team, and we were playing in San Luis Obispo during the summer. It was before my senior year. And I had a really good game, and there's a guy named Lee Irwin there. He was a scout for a Major League Scouting Bureau. What the Scouting Bureau did, they'd write a report on somebody they like, and they'd send it to all the Major League teams. So he worked for Major League Baseball, but he wasn't affiliated with a particular team.
Right.
I had a good game. He comes and talks to me after the game, and, dude, within a month, scouts were starting to come.
Boom.
Boom. Wow. Just like that.
Yeah.
It was the craziest thing. I went from my junior year, I didn't play every day my junior year in high school. Yeah. Like John Farmer would pitch. When he pitched, I'd play first base. When he didn't pitch, he'd play first base, and sometimes I'd DH. So I wasn't playing every day my junior year. I went from an honorable mention player in the EYL my junior year in high school to a second team All-American my senior year. Right. That's kind of
that's a huge jump.
That was the trajectory that I was going through. It was crazy, man. It was nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to say though, being at the right time, at the right place with the right people, right? Because
for sure,
boom,
for sure, and it was like that.
Yeah,
and then colleges started calling, and then it just started snowballing from there.
Yeah. I remember being at Buchanan, and I was with AJ and Josh. Josh was there on the side with us, coming to check out some kid. I was at Buchanan High School, and he says, "Yeah, I made the drive over here to go look at so and so," and I'm like, "Okay." So he walks. All right, guys, catch you later. That was it.
Really?
That's it. All right, he's walking to his position. I've seen enough. All right, I got to go to the next one. Josh Lambert,
Wait, he walked to his position?
Yeah, he walked to his position, the kid that he was coming to check out. And
that's a wrap, man.
That's it. We're done. All right, guys, I'll catch you later. See you at the next one.
That's a wrap.
Boom.
So Labby and he does a scout team, a Red Sox scout team that my son played on for the last couple of years. And I've actually, I would be on the field and I'd kind of help. And I got to know these players pretty well.
And for those who don't know Josh Lambert, he is a professional baseball scout. Yeah. That's why I brought him up.
Yeah, scout for the Red Sox. He played in the major leagues with the Expos, and now he's a good friend of mine, and he's a scout for the Red Sox. But I had a conversation with these kids about, and these are the kids from the Valley that are really good, right? Like the majority of these kids are all going Division I. Some might get drafted. They're really good players. And I talked to him about that. Like you said, Josh saw a kid walk to his position. That's a wrap. And I told these kids, I said, man, you're in this social media, look at me era right now, right? I said, but you got to understand, people my age and Josh's age, those are the ones you got to impress, right? And we're not going to change our standards for what your standards are. And so you got to think of things through that mindset as these kids, right? They're trying to impress their buddies with their bat flips and this and that. That doesn't impress the guys in the stands with the radar guns. It doesn't impress, they don't like that, they don't like it at all. Their buddies might like it. And their parents might condone it now, but the people, the people, the lifers, the baseball guys, they don't like that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you haven't earned it yet.
Yeah. You haven't earned it. That's a great point, dude.
So
you haven't earned it. Yeah.
So, I mean, as you progress into your, senior year, what's kind of the thought process? Like, did you have college offers at all? Was that an option you were looking at, or the pro route was?
So I think it was my Halloween, my senior year. I turned 17. I got my first call from a college team. It was Cal State Fullerton. And that was back when Cal State Fullerton was going to the World Series every year. And dude, it's like, oh my goodness. During that time, though, there was a scout for the Oakland A's that saw me play in fall ball. I played on a scout team. It was the Toronto Blue Jays. It was a scout team from back then. And there was a gentleman by the name of Craig Wallenbrock. He was an A's scout. And Craig Wallenbrock is now he's well known throughout baseball as being a really good hitting coach. Okay. He's getting older now. He's in his late 70s. And Craig would come to my house and we'd hit. He'd come from LA and we would hit and hit and hit. And so I didn't know anything about mechanics of a swing back then. Not at all, and Craig taught me all of this stuff. And then as my senior year started, I was able to implement these changes, and dude, the ball would just jump off my bat. It was crazy. And like what Craig said for me, he goes, the thing that really impressed me is you were coachable. Not the fact that you were listening and wanted to learn. It was that you were able to apply these things that I'm trying to help you with, and you're quickly able to apply them. So when you hear a kid's not coachable, it doesn't mean the kid doesn't necessarily want to get better or he doesn't want to work. He just physically, he's not athletic enough to kind of do what you want him to do, you know?
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to kind of bring it back now, you know, to talk about your career and things like, and maybe, about your career and stuff like that. What was one of your most favorable moments throughout it? You know, I mean, it could be a few things too. You know what I mean?
Dude, getting called to the big leagues might be one of the coolest things in the world.
There we go.
You know, when you spend 8 years in the minor leagues and you have some really good years, some really good down years. I was put on the 40-man roster after my third year, if you guys kind of understand what that is. So if you're a high school player, I think it's after your third year, the team has to decide if they're going to protect you on the 40-man roster, which means another team can't pick you up. If they pick you up on the AAA, or if they protect you on the AAA roster, you go through what they call Rule 5 draft. Another team can pick you up and put you on.
Nice.
After my third year, I hit 30 home runs in the big league, or in the minor leagues. They put me on the 40-man roster. And I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Most favorable moment, like being called up into the bigs and stuff
and
like that.
So you spend so much. So I would have some good years, like I said, and bad years in the minor leagues. And so finally, in 1998, I got picked up in the expansion draft by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. It was the first year them and the Diamondbacks were becoming a team. And what the expansion draft is for them to start with players, they would go out and they can pick certain players off certain teams to start a team, right?
Right.
I went to AAA that year. I got hurt the first game of the season. I pulled my hamstring. It was a wet night. I stretched for a ball at first base, and I popped my hamstring, so I missed the first 6 weeks.
Oh, man.
I hit like 250 that year with 13 home runs. They take me off the major league roster, the 40-man roster after that, right? So now it's like, I'm 23 years old. I've already played seven professional seasons. I'm like, what's going to happen? And I had a fire up my ass like I've never had in my life, man. I used to always say before a game, put up or shut up. And I went out that year, I hit 340, I had 25 home runs and 127 RBIs.
Nice.
I get called to the big leagues, and I never got sent down after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how you handle adversity.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
It's like, what else do I do? What else do I do?
It could have been a career-ending injury.
No, it could have.
And
not even the injury. So my poor performance wasn't because of my injury. I had a really good spring that year in 98, and then I got hurt, right? So then I'm off for 6 weeks.
Right.
And so I just never got back on track.
It's like a domino effect.
I just never got back on track, man. I just couldn't figure it out. And they ended up taking me off the roster. It was a pretty humbling experience.
But then you get the draft call, right? You're building up to that.
I'm getting the big league call.
Yeah.
No. So after the 99 season, they call me up a September call up. And so then I'm in the big leagues.
Where were you at? Like what, go through that.
So this is kind of cool. You guys see the movie The Rookie?
Yeah.
Jim Morris story?
Yeah.
So Jim Morris was on our team in Durham that year in AAA. He and I get called up together.
Okay.
And so we were in Charlotte, North Carolina. They call us into the office, both of us, and they said, you guys are going to the big leagues. And we're like, oh, yeah. So we get on a plane the next morning. We fly to Texas. And in the movie, the first day there, Jim Morris strikes out Royce Clayton, right?
Right.
I was there. I got to see it. And you know what's cool?
The
After he comes off the field, he goes, tomorrow's your turn. And sure enough, we're playing Texas. We were getting our butts kicked. It was like, a lot to a little. And I pinch hit for Fred McGriff in the 9th inning. A guy named Jeff Facero. And he gets 2 strikes on me, and he hung a slider and hit a double over the right fielder's head for my first major league at bat.
Nice.
And you know what's really cool is Tom Grieve is the color commentator for the Texas Rangers, and I'm really good friends with his son Ben, who played in the big leagues for a long time.
Okay.
And watching the video later, Tom was really excited for me. It was pretty cool. Pretty cool experience, yeah.
Yeah, we had heard there was something about the movie you were kind of involved in.
Well, in the movie, I'm played by a guy named Brooks.
Okay.
In the movie.
Okay, that's what it was.
That's me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Someone had mentioned to ask you about it.
If it was you that was actually in it.
No, well, there's live footage in that movie of a real game, and I'm playing first in that movie.
Gotcha.
You'd have to look for it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm
You'd
not
have to know what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not actually in the movie now.
So Steve, as your high school senior year begins to, I guess, come to an end, what's that kind of decision and I guess choice like to, are you going to go to college and accept a scholarship offer? Or are you going to, you're getting drafted, or are you going to just go right to the majors and start that process through the farm system?
Yeah, I forgot you asked that earlier, and I started going off on a tangent. So I ended up signing my letter of intent with Fresno State my senior year.
Okay.
Once it got closer to the end of my senior year, there were a lot of scouts at all of my games. It was pretty cool. It was like there was 15 scouts at every game.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was really neat. And I knew by that time there was rumors I would go as high as the last pick of the first round to the Colorado Rockies to the 5th round. That's kind of what publications said and blah blah blah. And I knew if I was in those, I was going to sign. I was going to go play pro ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
At the time, I knew players who had gone and played college ball. I didn't know anyone who'd ever played professional baseball. Being from Porterville, I didn't know anybody.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm going to go play pro ball. I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
I know there have been people, like I didn't know Rants back then.
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of my thing. And so my senior year, my last day of senior year, my dad stayed home from work, and this is before the draft was on TV. He stayed home from work to answer phones. And as I pulled up, after it was a minimum day that day, my dad was on the phone. I looked in the window, he gives him a thumbs up, and it was Craig Wallenbrock, the guy who I had hit with my whole senior year. It was him calling saying I was drafted in the 5th round. So
Nice.
yeah.
Talking about all this stuff that's going on for you, that's going on right now, it's like, what was it stressful? You know what I mean? Were you like anxious or any of that type of stuff?
No, I was excited.
You're excited?
There was no, and I don't remember ever being nervous. I don't remember ever being scared. I enjoyed all the scouts. I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I had no experience with it, but for some reason I embraced it, and I loved it, man.
Yeah.
I never felt any anxiety towards
Pressure
it at
or
all.
anything
Nothing.
like that. You
I really
just
didn't.
Wake up, go to school, practice.
Let's go.
Let's
Let's work out. I'm
boom, boom, boom.
gonna start hitting. We had a batting cage. I'd hit every day, and it was fun. You know, it was a fun thing.
Yeah.
As a fan of baseball, I personally believe you might be able to confirm that baseball is the toughest to make it to the highest level, because you have to prove yourself at every single level. So could you kind of explain that process after getting drafted, the different levels you had to go through, and you're constantly having to prove yourself and, advance and make a name for yourself every night, kind of. So how was that process for you?
So I was drafted 1st of June, signed like 3 days later, flew out the next day to Arizona. Now I'm in rookie ball. And this is kind of a side note, but it was kind of interesting. This is the one time where I was like, where am I? You get to Arizona, and it's like everyone who had been drafted is there, plus a lot of Latin players, right? There was no draft in the Latin countries, and there are a bunch of free agents, and there's probably 50 Latin players and 50 guys that had just been drafted, or 40 guys had just been drafted. And I remember a guy named Ben Hines, or Bruce Hines rather. He was the rookie ball manager, and he looks at everyone. He goes, "Maybe 2 of you make it to the big leagues." And I'm looking around, and so Jason Giambi was drafted in my class. He's here. A guy who just led the country in home runs from Oklahoma was right here. It's first baseman out of Cal named Troy Penix, like 6'5", 250
There's
pounds.
some dudes here. Yeah.
And I'm looking around and said, what the hell am I doing? How did I get here? No, seriously. I was like,
experience.
if there's only 2 of us, I'm not one of the 2,
Right.
And it's funny, I've thought about this, and I've talked to kids, like, what was the difference? There was 3 guys on that field that made it. Me, Jason Giambi, and a kid named Tony Batista, who had a really good major league year. There's 3 of us out of all of those players who made it to the big leagues. Yeah.
Humbling
Some
experience.
straight studs in there.
Dude, it was unbelievable, man. It was so I went out my rookie ball year. It was funny. I like the first 2 weeks, I think I was hitting like 400. I'm like, I got this.
Smoking it.
2 weeks later, hitting 150. like this playing every day isn't
I
for
gotta
me.
change my underwear now.
I remember I was only 17 at the time, right?
Yeah.
I remember calling home crying, saying I should have gone to college. I should have gone to college. It was tough, man. Fortunately, the Oakland A's had this guy. His name was Harvey Dorfman. Harvey Dorfman wrote a book called The Mental Game of Baseball. It's a really popular book within the baseball community, but he was employed by the Oakland A's. And so he would come and he'd see me. And I wish I remember our conversations, but he just kind of cleared my mind. I was putting pressure on myself then, like, okay, what if I don't make it? What if I don't make it? I can't go back to college and play, blah, blah, blah. So then you start putting pressure on yourself, right?
Right.
It's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
But I ended up Dude, I went every step of the way. I didn't repeat. I went rookie ball, short A, low A, high A, double A, triple A. And I didn't repeat a step until I got to triple A.
Right.
Yeah. So
I like asking this question for the young athletes that listen to this, because we're talking about adversity. We're talking about, this, we're doing great, and then bang, setback. Boom, doing great, boom, setback. Talking about crying, should have went back to college. Like you mentioned reading. What was that like your thing, or did you have people in your circle that you could go back and talk to, like just to help you reevaluate the situation to get back onto track? You know what I mean?
Zach, it was so long ago that I would call home daily, and they wasn't always woe is me conversations, and I talked to my brother a lot, and I talked to my friends, but I don't ever remember getting so derailed that I needed to get kind of brought back in. I never got too bad. I mean, I got to the point where it was frustrating, and I was a 17-year-old kid playing with 22-year-olds. That was tough. I was very naive as a 17-year-old, coming from Porterville, and I'm playing with these college kids. That part was I was kind of left out a little bit because I was the kid who couldn't go out to the bar. I was just a kid. I was young, so that part was a little frustrating. But it is what it is.
But you always stayed in it, though. I mean, you always worked hard, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's how you did it there. You know what I mean?
Fortunately, Brant Brown was a big part of my life then. So Brant Brown was drafted the same year as me. He was a third rounder with the Cubs. I was a fifth rounder. And so after the 93 season, Brant and I lived together in Fresno, and we worked out at Fresno State together. So I was 18 years old, and I was living with Brant in the offseason. And dude, that guy knows how to work. I didn't know how to work. Right, I thought I knew how to work. That guy's crazy, right? In a good way. He's a nut when it comes to his work ethic. And it was nice to be. I was impressionable enough that I can kind of take. I never got to his way he worked though. He was obsessive about a lot, right?
Right.
I was only obsessive about a little.
Yeah.
And he was a good one to have in my corner though.
Yeah, I remember
even today with what he does, he's obsessive, and they talk about it on the broadcast all the time when they go to him.
So last year, he was working with my son AJ remotely on hitting. And I listened to him talk. I'm like, I thought I knew something about hitting. I don't know anything about this game anymore. Like, he's so good at what he does.
Right.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
He's just evolving constantly. Yeah. I remember catching him a few times at In Shape working out.
Yeah.
This is like 11 years ago. I couldn't take my eyes off of him, because the guy was just... He just was different. You know what I mean? Just completely different. And I'm like 19 at that time. I'm like so lean and shredded and stuff.
He can run.
Oh my goodness. He was
fast. Yeah. He was a special athlete. If that guy played football, he'd have been in the NFL. Yeah. He could have figured something out.
Yeah, definitely nice to have a guy like that in your corner, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you kind of talk about rookie ball, having 50 guys surrounded, by you, high level athletes. You advance into all the different levels, the single A, double A, all that. What was the difference between the guys that were able to advance consistently up the farm through the farm system and the guys that kind of disappeared? I mean, because you see a lot of that. You guys just leave it all the time,
you
right?
See it. I'll get back. Remind me to get back to that question.
Okay.
But I got a story about a guy, and just give you an example of how this works.
Yeah.
In 1995, I was 20 years old. I was an A ball. And that was the year I hit 298 with 30 home runs and 110. There was another guy on our team who was a first baseman, also from Wichita State, but he was 25 years old. He hit 3, I hit 4. He hit 27 home runs, hit 300, and like 100 RBIs.
He was on it. Yeah.
He was good, man. He was really good. He was a great dude, too. He goes to spring training next year. He retires. He just had a 27 home run year, 100 RBIs, hit 300. He retired the next year. He was married. He goes, it's time for me to go. And he's very successful. Last I heard, he's doing really well in life. But it just, some people, they want to do other things, right?
Yeah.
Some people want to do other things. But I think a lot of people who are gamers, who want to be in the big leagues and want to do, I think the managing of the failures is kind of really hard on them. And also managing your personal life versus your professional life, right? I was never one to go out and party. But there was guys who did it every single night. Like, I had roommates that would go out every single night. And dude, alcohol and baseball, when you're playing that, it just breaks you down, right? It breaks you down. Fortunately, from what I understand now, it's not as big in the game as it was when I played. It was a big thing when I played, but now guys have gotten smarter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you kind of hear the stories back in the 70s, 80s, even 90s. Guys going to the clubhouse, smoking cigarettes after the game, drinking in the clubhouse.
When I was in Japan, people still smoked in the clubhouse.
No kidding.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. There was ashtrays in the dugout, in the benches in Japan.
Yeah, you can't beat them, join them. You know what I mean?
But that was like they were transitioning out of it. I don't ever remember seeing somebody smoke in the dugout, but they'd go in the clubhouse and smoke all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, there's a few stories that Rant shared with me at our other facility about some big names.
Yeah,
I'll let him share the stories.
For sure.
He says, man, you'd be surprised how many guys go to that batter's box drunk. You know what I mean? And they function high level too, though. You know what I mean?
And he might be talking about a guy that I know really well, and I think they actually played together. They know each other well. He used to say when he played in the 70s and 80s, he'd say, I can hit today, but just don't hit me a pop fly.
I'm going to hit the one in the middle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He goes, I could still
That's
hit,
a good way to put it.
Don't make my head go up because I might fall down.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I remember watching that documentary. You'll probably know the name. I forget his name right now, but he threw the no-hitter with, I think, Pittsburgh.
Doc Ellis.
On LSD or something. Threw the no-hitter.
Yeah.
Couldn't see that he's all. Every time I threw the ball, it was like I was throwing a beach ball off my hand.
Which, and Rants came up in a time where it was different. They were doing different things. Like, basically, when I was playing, they were just drinking beer. You know what I mean? But he came up in a different time where those guys were crazy. They were wild.
It was different.
I've heard some stories.
Yeah. So your best season was 2001?
My 2002, I hit 17 home runs, 72 RBIs. Yeah.
And where were you at in 2002?
I was still in Tampa.
You're still in Tampa?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you go from the major leagues and now you're playing across seas.
Mm-hmm.
What made you come to that decision to just say, all right, I'm done here. Let's see what I could do over there?
Yeah, so it's more of a selfish reason. I was up for arbitration, for you guys to know what arbitration is, after you have 3 full years. So I had 3 full years, parts of 4 years, right? Once you hit 3 full years in the big leagues, in that 3-year period, the team has control of how much money you make. You have to make at least the league minimum.
Okay.
And then, like every year, they'd give you bumps, but it was like a $30,000, $40,000 bump, right? So,
okay.
And so I was up for arbitration, Tampa being a small market team, right? The rumor was they were going to offer me X amount of dollars. Right, in arbitration. You don't want to go to arbitration either because you're with your representative, they're on the other side of the table, and you want X amount of money, they want to give you X amount of money, and then they basically tell you how bad they are. Derek Jeter famously said, I didn't realize how bad of a player I was until I came out of arbitration.
Wow.
That's Derek Jeter, right?
No kidding.
So I get a call that off season. We had just had my oldest daughter, Gabby. So this is 2002, and I get a call from my agent. He says, what do you think about going to Japan? I said, dude, I'm way too young to go to Japan right now. I said, that'd be something I would consider later on. And they started throwing out some dollar figures. I'm like, okay, I might be going to Japan.
Yeah,
I might. And so long story short, the scout, the Japanese scout that scouts American players, he came down to LA. I went visit him with my dad. We met, and that's it. We met. As we're driving back, I get a call from an agent on the 65, and their offer was like double from what they initially thought it was going to be. And I said,
Let's do it.
We got to go. I mean, it was more than I thought I'd ever make in my life, right? So it's like I have to do it, and I hate kind of telling the story because if you're so monetarily motivated, it kind of looks bad. But when you're 28 years old, you just started a family.
Right.
You had a decent year, but you didn't have a great year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of free agent first basemen that year. Big Papi there was a lot of them that year. And dude, Big Papi didn't have a place to play after his last year in Minnesota. And that was after the 2002. Right. Uh-huh. Fortunately, he signs with a small deal to go to Boston, and then he becomes Big Papi.
Right.
And then he becomes
it takes off.
Him.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So you go over to Japan, and you didn't play.
I got hurt. The 6th day of spring training, doing sliding drills. Yeah.
Doing sliding drills.
Yeah. I can't really get into all that, but yeah, it was a bad deal. I get hurt. I go to the minor leagues and rehab. I tried to play a couple games. I kept having problems. I flew in to see a doctor. I got to be careful how I say this. I flew in to see a doctor in LA, and he said, you're probably done for the year. And I get a call saying I'm released.
Wow.
And fortunately, it was a guaranteed contract, right? So,
okay.
I mean, the money was guaranteed. So, but it kind of sucked. I liked it there.
You wanted to play.
I really liked it there. I loved it there.
Okay.
And so, that's kind of what happened. we were doing sliding drills in spring training.
So did you ever get to spend, how much time did you spend in Japan?
I was there for almost a full season.
Full season, yeah.
Full season.
But I was rehabbing the whole time. The whole time, man. I lived in Yokohama, a place called Motomachi, and the stadium was only like 4 blocks from my apartment. But I had to rehab at the minor league facility. It was in Yokosuka, which right by this big naval base. It's about a 30-minute train ride. So I'd take the train every morning, 6:30 in the morning, and go rehab, and take the train back. So
how was that experience?
It's freaking awesome, man.
In Japan?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that place. I've been fortunate enough to go back a couple times with the job I have now, and I mean, I could have been there for 10 years. I really did. I loved the culture, the people.
Most
everything.
people say that though.
Dude, most people like. You get these Americans that go there in baseball that like think everything's dumb because it's different. It's more disciplined. It is a little. It is different. It takes some getting used to. They do
it's changed.
They do some stuff that's eyewash. Like I remember in spring training after dinner, we stayed in Okinawa spring training. We're in a hotel, and behind the hotel was our facility. Right, we would have to after dinner go and soft toss. It was a crate. There had to have been 400 balls in this thing, and you have to soft toss like all of them, like before you can go home. Like,
wow.
That's a lot. I mean, in the big leagues or in professional baseball, once you feel good, you're done. Yeah. There, it's like once you feel good, you do it for another hour.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It was a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very disciplined,
for sure,
clean country. I mean, and that dates back to the history of Japan, the samurai, and it's still in place today.
I mean, look at the players we got coming over here now. That are just tearing up our game.
Shohei Ohtani.
Dude, they're so disciplined, and it's such a cool play. They have this thing. It's called senpai kohai. So I'm older than you. I'm your senpai, right? You're younger than me. You're my kohai. So you could be like the president of a company, but you still have to respect me more than anything because I'm older than you.
Right.
So it was so funny. I'd walk to the train station in the morning, right, to go to my rehab on like a Saturday morning. You would walk down the street and there'd be these young businessmen in suits laying on the ground, passed out with like beer cans next to them because their senpai said, "You got to go out with us tonight." And they would just get them hammered and throw them on the side of the road. Every Saturday, you'd see one or two.
Crazy.
It was the craziest thing. I had to ask. I'm like, "What's going on here? These guys are in suits laying on the side of the road." Yeah, it was nuts. It was nuts.
That is different.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like eye-opening, worldly experience.
It really
culture.
is. It really is. And my daughter was 6 months old, and right above our apartment there was an international school. And I wanted her to go to school there so badly.
No kidding.
Yeah, it would have been really cool, but it didn't.
It wasn't in the deck of cards.
Yeah, it didn't work out. But
knowing what you know today, is there anything you would have done a little bit different?
I don't know, man.
Maybe tweaked it. Made an adjustment.
Dude, the only thing I could think of is, what was my goal? Was it to stay in the big leagues as long as I can and try to win a World Series, or is it to make some money? I think by going to Japan, I shortened my career in the major leagues for sure.
Okay.
Right? Out of sight, out of mind type of thing.
Right.
I don't know, but would it have worked out the same? So I don't really think of that stuff, Zach, too often.
Was there a team that you wanted to kind of play for more or less?
Not really, man.
You just wanted to play baseball.
Once you're in the big leagues, I know there's some guys who grew up like big Yankees fans and they want to play for the Yankees like Derek Jeter did.
Right.
I didn't really have that.
I really
wanted
to play ball.
I just wanted to play, man. I enjoyed my teammates a lot. I wish I would have made it to the big leagues with the A's because that's who I was drafted by. And I had a lot of good friends there, man. That would have been pretty cool. Yeah. That would have been cool to play for them. I love Billy. Billy Bean was awesome as a general manager. He was a good dude, still there today. It was a really first class organization for being a small market team.
Right.
How was he to play for, Billy Bean?
So,
because everyone knows him from like the movie.
I was never in the big leagues, right, with them. So, but I knew him decently well for being in the minor leagues, and he was just always very nice and very, very cordial. And I wasn't buddies with the guy. I was around him, but he was a smart dude, man. He took over for Sandy Alderson like my third year there, and he did something special with that organization.
Yeah,
he did.
Baseball has definitely changed at all levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
The minors, there's been some improvements there.
Little League,
high school, but now even like with the majors and stuff like that, the time trying to shorten the game up for different reasons, right? Money, marketing, viewership, all this stuff. Where do you think the direction of baseball is going? is it going in the right direction, the wrong direction? Why not?
I wish I was in the culture of the major leagues right now. I'd have a better answer for you. I can only do somebody who played 20 years ago and kind of look in and give my opinion. The shortening of the game, right? A lot of people complain about it. All the bat flips and all of this stuff. I think if I'm correct, viewership is like an all-time high, right?
Yeah.
Is Major League Baseball ever going to do anything to try to curtail all of this look at me when their viewership is as
The
high as it is?
unwritten rule book and stuff like that.
I don't know if Major League Baseball will ever do anything about it as their viewership is going up. The problem is you get these kids doing it, man, and you get these parents that condone it, right? It's back when I was a kid, parents had a lot of influence on their children. I think now children have a lot of influence on their parents.
It's social media. Yeah. That's what it is.
And so these parents are condoning this crazy behavior, this bat flipping and these dances at second base, you know, and I feel like a old get off my lawn guy, right? But it's a little bit of an issue for guys like me.
There is some time. I mean, like I mentioned before, there's a time and a place. You know what I mean? And the second inning double might not be the time and the place. You know what I mean?
Down 4 runs.
Yeah.
It's like it's not the time for it. We had a guy on my son's team, and we're winning like 14 runs. It's a double and does a dance. I said, listen, man, I can't see that.
Yeah.
You're at 14 runs. You don't do that. No, there's a way to conduct yourself.
100%.
But that translates into being a person too, right? Off the field.
Absolutely.
It
that
does.
totally
It carries
translates.
over.
And that's where I think the issue lies, right?
For sure. And you, as a teacher, I bet you see it, you know, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think things ever go backwards though.
Well, I mean, you see it not just baseball, but you go to wrestling tournaments.
Oh, really?
And you go to, basketball games. And it's not all the time, but you do see that. And the thing is, these kids are seeing it on social media. They're seeing it on TV. They're watching pro ball, whatever happening there.
Yeah.
But the problem is like you said, parents and other people are condoning it and letting it happen.
Yeah, and the parents are like, that's my boy. It's like, man, no.
Because it's one thing to do it at the professional level, but 99.9 people are not going to play professional ball. And when you're doing those things at, a Little League game on a Saturday or even in high school, those are character things. And those become character flaws, I believe.
Absolutely. Well said.
Because
well said.
Most of them aren't going to play pro ball.
No.
Or even
Hardly
college ball.
none of them.
Or even, none of them.
Exactly.
So it's like, let's try to have fun, but do things the right way. And let's
Right.
teach these kids about character. Because I think that's why most of these kids are going to play sport. And that's the biggest benefit they're going to have out of it. Since most of them won't go play at the higher level, it's building character.
Absolutely.
Becoming better people.
Exactly. And what's funny is there's really good kids that do that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily define you. But, but it's like, it's just one of those things that my wife hates it worse than me, which is crazy. It's awesome. We watched the College World Series, and she would just she's like, I can't watch this anymore. But did you see that home run that Wyatt Langford, Florida hit? It was like a game-tying home run.
Yeah.
And he just had pure excitement and joy, right? That's a good fist pump and spin. That's fine.
Walk-off home run or something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah. I get it, man. Show your excitement. Just don't be dumb.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a time and a place, and it's one thing to show that raw emotion.
Exactly.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
It is.
You watch like LSU winning, and even in the women's college basketball and stuff, when they're showing the emotion, that's raw emotion after you just won a national title. That's one thing.
But I always wondered when this started, because when I was playing, if I hit a home run and did all of that stuff, the guy behind me in a certain situation is going to get hit.
Yeah.
Or if they're not going to hit him, I'm going to get hit the next 3 times up, right? When did that stop? I don't know when all of that stopped. Yeah, I'm curious.
It's hard to say, but it's one of those situations. I mean, it's like, again, I go back, social media. I mean, it could be a blessing and a curse, and it goes back to viewership and all this money.
I think it is a blessing and a curse. Yeah. I think there's a lot.
You get a kid out at the middle school, and he's in high school and he's just messing around and he kicks a field goal from 50, boom, scholarship. Yeah. Just off of a social media. He just goes viral with it. All right, you got a scholarship, come play with Alabama. But it's a blessing and a curse, you know what I mean? But, you did all 3 of your kids play sports, right?
So AJ's twin sister, Lainey, she was a really good swimmer, but she doesn't want to swim in college.
Okay.
So,
But Gabby, she was a volleyball player, right? Yeah. So, being a parent of kids that are playing at high levels and did play at high levels, What advice would you give to parents about raising young athletes? What would you say to them?
Man, you are never going to force obsession and joy and passion in a sport on your kid. I think you can mostly just take it away. I think you can introduce it to them, you can support it, you can but they have to inherently have that feeling in them,
right.
Now, I could say with my son, when he was little, I asked him at, I think 12 years old, I said, AJ, do you want me to be the dad that sits on the sideline and just cheers for you?
Right.
Or do you want me to be the dad that lets you know what you need to do and he goes, let me know. So I've taken that and I have not let him slide backwards one bit.
Right.
I'm like, dude, if you say you're going to do it, here we go.
And there's a way though, after you receive that message back from AJ, you're not a dictator now. You're
hell no.
You have to find that voice to where now he can hear you the best.
Exactly.
Right.
And I struggle with that at times with him. I really do, because I'm passionate about this. Like I tell him, I said, dude, this game is everything I own is because of this game. So I have a lot of passion and a lot of opinions on the way you progress, right? And so if I see anything, I'm not afraid to say it, but AJ and I are really, really close where I can give him that feedback. And sometimes I have a really good relationship with my son. And sometimes it's like, Dad, I know. But sometimes it's like, he gets it, and he's like, no, you're right. Like, so, and these are almost daily conversations with he and I, to be honest with you. They really are.
No, that's a great way of putting it. You know what I mean? And the thing, it goes back to what you just said in the very beginning when you first started that. Like, you can't force it.
You can't, man.
It has to happen organically.
I was never pushed.
Never pushed.
Never pushed.
I was about to ask you that.
I was, if you're going to do something, you do something. Let me tell you a cool story. When I was 15 years old, I was playing a Babe Ruth game. I took strike one and I shook my head at the umpire. I ended up striking out, okay? After the game, my dad was like silent treatment. I said, what's wrong, Dad? He goes, I don't ever want to see you do that again. I said, what are you talking about? I didn't even know what I did.
Yeah.
He said, I knew from the second you threw that little temper tantrum out there, you were done. I was 15 years old, and fortunately, I listened to my dad. You know what I mean? I didn't say, you're dumb. I did a little something he didn't like. He said, I knew you were done because you were just like doing this kind of little temper tantrum stuff,
I'm sure he was mad at that moment, but he knew you were done. Like, you
for
checked,
sure.
like what inning was it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that was it.
Yeah.
Steve wasn't coming back, and that's probably what he was most frustrated about.
He was. And and so I learned from there, you always conduct yourself in a certain way when you're on a baseball field. Right. You always conduct yourself in a certain way. Now, as you get older, you're going to show anger. You're going to be pissed off. You're going to yell. You're going to be mad, right? Those are raw emotions like we talked about. I think that kind of stuff's good. Right. I can't just keep everything in. But I'm not going to pout, and I'm not going to whine, and I'm not going to blame somebody else.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that. I wasn't allowed to do that kind of stuff. So those are the kind of things my parents gave me, not the pushing to go work. They didn't do that.
Right.
They didn't do that. I was able to do that kind of on my own.
Right.
Yeah.
So as someone who's played at all levels of the game, and you have kids that have played sport, your son AJ is playing at a high level in high school, and signed with Cal State Bakersfield, right, to play next year. And you weren't pushed, you said, by your parents, but what does it, I guess, take to today? Everyone approaches sport and how they, I guess, push and raise their kids in a different way, and you see some that it's playing travel, this, and that's what it takes to go to that level. But what does it take to allow your kid, your athlete, to find that passion and consistently be passionate about the game and not get burned out and not lose focus, not lose interest, things of that sort?
I think every kid has to be different, right? I think there's probably some kids you can push a little more, but I think as a parent, you have to have that relationship with your kid, and they have to trust you. I think your kid has to trust that you have their best interest at heart. I'm not going to go tell my daughter Gabby in volleyball all the drills she has to do because I don't know what she has to do. Right. Now, my wife can take care of that part, right? With Lainey and swimming, I don't know what it takes to be a good swimmer. I have no idea. So what I would do as a parent, because 99% of the parents out there, they don't know what it takes.
Right.
They have no clue. They've never experienced it. So with Lainey, it's like, do you think you should be doing some today? Do you want to do this today? You talk to them and you kind of get their feeling on
Yeah.
it. You know, I don't think there's a cookie cutter way of doing any of this stuff, man. You guys don't have you have a boy. Do you have
I
kids?
don't know.
Dude, I got 3 kids. 2 of them are twins. They're totally different.
Yeah.
And you can't I raised them all 3 totally differently. I can
Right.
get in AJ's butt. Like, I can't get in all their butt though. You know, I can really get in AJ's, and he
Right.
takes it well, you know.
It's just different.
Yeah, it's just different.
Everybody's different, you know. And
Yeah. But to be successful in a sport, though, you have to form an obsession. I think there has to be an obsession, and that's not taught. And I don't know. I think some people have it, and some people, but I think it can be developed as well.
Right.
It's not something you're just born with, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like I said on the last podcast, you know what I mean? And obsession requires sacrifice, and that's usually where people steer. They go, all right, maybe I don't want this anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, and another thing is too, and as you get older, and I wouldn't expect a 13-year-old to do this, but as you get older into high school, your later parts of high school or into college, like when you set a plan, like a workout plan,
Right.
you don't just say, I'm going to do it when I feel like it today.
Right.
Like you have a time, man.
Right.
You make an appointment. I'm going to work out at 9 today.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes you might have to adjust your plan, but you don't just say, I'm going to do it when I feel like it.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work. And any athlete will tell you the routines are so important. And when you develop a routine, you freaking stay on that routine, no matter how your success level. Sometimes you have to adjust a little bit. But I would get to the ballpark. I'd do the same thing every day. I'd go hit. And sometimes I would do soft toss, and sometimes I'd take 10 swings. Sometimes I need 20, 30, 40 swings, right? It just depends how I felt. But it was a routine, and I did the same thing every single day, and all good players do the same thing.
Yeah. That you're stacking your days is basically what you're doing.
For
You
sure.
know what I mean? The every single day you show up, you get to stack it. Boom, stack. And every single time you stack it, that pyramid gets a little bit higher.
Exactly.
Gets right to the tippy top where it's where you're trying to go, you know, and things like that.
I bet golfers are the same way too, because it's
yeah.
such a mental game. Hitting is such a mental game. Golfing is such a mental game. If all of a sudden you don't think you've done everything to prepare yourself for that day, your brain doesn't feel right, man.
Right.
Remember Nomar Garcia used to do all that stuff? Remember
yeah,
that?
man.
There's a reason behind
Yes.
that stuff. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? There's a reason. That's him resetting his brain. That's him doing the same thing so he doesn't feel weird, right? And so that kind of stuff's important. As annoying as some people thought it was, I freaking loved it because I understood the intent behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like Tiger Woods, his approach is the exact same for every hole. He sets the tee down, puts a tee down in the box the exact same way every single time. Approaches it, everything's dialed in.
Do you think Tiger Woods for breakfast on a Sunday doesn't know what he's going to eat in the morning?
Yeah.
Or do you think he has 30 things to choose from? Guarantee you he doesn't. He probably has a couple things. And this is what I'm going to do.
Right.
This is how I know it makes my body feel. Guys used to make fun of me when I was playing in the big leagues because when we were at home, I'd only eat at 3 different places. I wouldn't go anywhere else. Randy Wynn, you say, hey, why don't you pick me up for lunch? I said, nope. I got to drive by myself.
Yeah.
And he would do it.
Don't
just
take
to
it
mess with me.
personal.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
drive by myself. I listen to the same music, and I go to one of 3 places.
Yeah.
Right. Because I didn't want to, 7 o'clock, all of a sudden my stomach felt weird. Or, right. And it's those little attention to detail, I think, that is missed. And those aren't things that are taught. And I don't know if they should be taught. They maybe explain that if you get to a certain point, this might happen to you. Because there are some freaking freaks, man, that they don't need that stuff. They just figure it out, you know? There's some freaks. Harvey Dorfman said, if you look on any major league field, 5% of the people, no matter what they did, were going to be major leaguers. 5%. The other 95 just worked way harder than everybody else.
That's a good
and it's
way
a
of putting
good
it.
point,
That's
man.
a good point.
Yeah.
Because you get guys that are lazy, freaking out, partying all the time, and they go 2 for 3 the next day, like nothing, right? But those are the outliers. You know, you can't
stay away from those people.
you can't teach that.
Yeah. I wanted to go back, you know, to about the parent thing. You know, talking about that. You know, talking about you can't help your daughter with swimming. You weren't a swimmer, right? You know what I mean? So it's like I think a big thing about getting your kid to the next level, or just with growth and involving them in whatever particular sport, maybe they're just a multi-athlete, is getting them into the right places.
For sure.
Because I think a big thing that parents sometimes misunderstand is that, you know, somebody might know how to do it better than you.
100%.
You know, and once my son has trainers, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, he's only 8, but at the same time, I don't want to have that type of relationship where it's just always like, oh,
Dad's doing it.
Man, you know what I mean? So I think a big thing for parents, to go back to what you said, is like, okay, Gabby, she does struggling in volleyball. Your mom, go to your mom.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's not your mom, then let's go talk to your aunt. If it's not the aunt, let's go hire a trainer.
Sometimes they need a different voice.
Exactly.
For sure.
And I think that's a big step for parents to take for their athletes to evolve into something great.
Dude, I was talking to a friend of mine, and a lot of people are kind of old school where they're against all this travel ball stuff. And I was so opposed to it.
Really?
Like when I was young, when my kids were young. When my kids were young, I'm like, if you're good. I used to joke. I said, so if Albert Pujols played travel ball, he'd be better than he is now. That was kind of my thing, right?
Yeah.
What I've seen, though, is kids are so good at 14, 15 years old now.
It's crazy.
They're so good, dude.
Right.
Unbelievable. It's like these kids at 13, 14, 15 were better than me as a fifth rounder when I was 17,
They're
18
getting offers as freshmen, eighth graders.
I know, dude.
You know, it's crazy.
These kids are so good now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen by hitting once a week. Right. That doesn't happen. I mean, it can. I guess like I said, there's outliers that are just freaks, but the majority of these kids are playing a lot. And, and there's something to it, you know, as much as it pained me to think that, because it's a lot of work, man, as a parent. It's a lot.
And I think that's where you have to be passionate, obsessed with it, because in today's world, whether it's basketball or baseball, it takes that. If you're not playing travel ball, if you're not playing for clubs, if you're not doing this, like, I mean, you might not even make your high school team.
For sure.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So like,
well, and you know, and Porterville's different, man. We're a little more of a depressed area than some of these other places, right?
Sure.
What I saw in my son when he was playing on this Red Sox scout team, which is the best players from Bakersfield up to like Modesto, right?
Okay.
And they would meet every Wednesday, and just when you're surrounded around really good players, dude, there's
it's contagious.
It's so awesome.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, in Porterville, there's a couple of those kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're not surrounded. So for him, it's like, listen, dude, do not maintain your standards. Maintain your standards.
Right.
You know, you know, Louie Torres, right?
Yeah,
So Louie and AJ work out every day together now. It's freaking awesome. I love that kid. And it's so nice that AJ has somebody that's pitching that's going to be a higher level pitcher as well. That you need that, right?
Right.
Because you can't be doing it by yourself, especially as a kid.
You
It's
never
hard.
want to be the best player in the room.
Hell no.
You know?
No, I never was.
Yeah, Louie's great. He's now coming in here and God, one of the most well respected kids that I've ever trained.
Awesome.
You know, but what's the definition of insanity?
repeating something that doesn't work over
repetition, you know, because I go back and forth with the whole year-round sports. I got a question from a parent. Hey, is it going to be okay if my kid just plays baseball all year round? I wouldn't advise it as a freshman. You know, if he's a multi-sport player already, let him play his multi-sports. You know what I mean? But just make sure you're still, when that time does come and he is just a baseball player, that he's still kind of getting exposed to those things that he was before.
For sure.
Basketball, just quick, sudden reflex.
Absolutely.
And that's the best place for him to be is a gym.
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. Because, you know, speaking from a person that's gone through a few injuries and stuff like that, it's the moment you get an injury is the body changes, the mind changes, things start to change. And you just, like you said, you don't want to leave any doors open.
No, I've had way too many injuries, and and they were long injuries too, and they set you back so far. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's injuries for taller people aren't as
Mine
easy
were all
either.
like broken bones. I like shattered all these bones in my face. I broke a bunch of things getting hit by balls. Yeah.
You shattered a bunch of bones in your face with a
I had
ball?
reconstructive surgery on the right side of my face. Yeah, it was it wasn't even during the game. It was during early batting practice. I was throwing down the right field line and I just didn't pay attention. The guy hit a line drive and got me right here and shattered my zygomatic, my orbital, and my lower eye socket. Yeah, and it was a bad deal.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, it was
that's
fun.
new to me. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
no kidding.
I got a Teflon pad holding my eye in my right eyeball. Yeah, like
wow.
I don't have a lower eye socket.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So you obviously have faced a lot of great pitchers. You've been surrounded by great, players on on your own teams, but also on opposing teams. Who's like the one guy that you either played against or played with that really stands out to you, whether it's work ethic or just like the way they carry themselves?
There's
there anyone
a few, man.
Who are some of the guys that like kind of stand
The crime
out?
dog, man. Fred McGriff was the ultimate professional. The guy, he just got inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He was the ultimate professional.
On and off the field? Or
On and
just-
off the field,
yeah.
dude. We'd go out to dinner. He was such a good guy. This is how cool Fred was. So he was the first baseman, right? I get called to the big leagues. I never played the outfield, ever, until I got to the big leagues. My first game playing the outfield was Yankee Stadium, right, my rookie year.
Well, that's a way to start it off.
No, it wasn't good. It was scary.
Yeah.
And Fred was always supportive, right? And like, I'm the young guy, and I wasn't even trying to take. I wasn't trying to. I know I'm not taking Fred McGriff's job. That's Fred McGriff, but I want to fit in here, right?
Right.
So my second in 2001, there was rumors that he was going to get traded, and I think we're in Anaheim. And after the game, he comes up to me. He goes, "It's all yours now." I was the first. Like he told me, he just got traded to the Cubs. He just got traded to the Cubs. And he was just a sweet man, just a good dude, man.
Yeah, no pride.
Yeah.
No nothing.
That's cool.
But you know what? Watching the Yankees play back in the day was something really special. Like the way that they went about their business was like Jeter. I mean, Bernie Williams might be the most underrated player ever. You know, he was so good. Tino Martinez. Yeah. Jorge Posada. Those guys were really fun to watch. They're
All
really
the professionals and just
unbelievable.
it's awesome.
It was that place was something special. We were the first team to play there after 9/11, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was that was probably one of the highlights of my career is playing there after 9/11.
What was that experience like?
It was so, you know, we took like 9 days off after the trade centers went down.
Right.
And I think our first game back was in Boston. And what was really crazy is, you guys probably don't know this, but multiple times during a game in Boston, the fans chant, "Yankees suck." Everyone, 30,000 people, "Yankees suck," right?
Yeah.
They didn't do it that day. And then at the end of the game, they played New York in Fenway, right?
Wow.
Yeah, they played New York
Respect,
in Fenway.
man.
It gave me chills just thinking about it. So we fly to New York, and normally we stay downtown Manhattan by Grand Central Station. Well, the trade centers were still smoking. And we had to fly into New York, and we stayed in New Jersey, but you can see the smoke coming from. So we get to the ballpark, and there's bomb sniffing dogs. We've never experienced that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It was like, oh man. So what they ended up doing that day, so this was probably 10 to 14 days after the bombings happened, when we were playing them, somewhere around there. My math might be a little off. But we all line up down the first base line with first responders, and I still remember my guy was a firefighter, gravelly voice. He'd a lot of smoke inhalation, and Michael Bolton sung the national anthem. Right, he was big back then. Yeah, it was really cool. But the coolest part of the whole thing, man, is I'm playing first base, and it was probably like the second inning or third inning, and all of a sudden, place is packed. Right, there's this hush. And everyone starts chanting, "Rudy, Rudy." Giuliani was the mayor at the time,
right?
Which, no matter what your politics are, back then people liked him in New York.
Sure.
He comes and he sits right down by the first base dugout, dude, and the place just goes
Wild.
nuts. And we beat Roger Clemens that night.
Little cherry on the top.
There you go.
It was
Icing
freaking
on the
awesome,
cake.
man.
Yeah,
It was awesome.
That's a good story
Yeah,
right there.
it was a really neat experience.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Steve, you kind of talked earlier about, we talked about Japan, and you kind of talked about going back there for work. So now, what are you doing today for people that are going to listen to this that haven't kind of kept up with you?
I'm in the citrus business now, so I kind of make decisions on fruit that's being picked to certain markets. So I've gone to Japan and the Asian countries a few times just to meet with customers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
how's that whole world kind of treating you, and how's that been? Going from a professional baseball player now, kind of transitioning into managing citrus.
It was humbling at first, man. I'll be honest with you. My plan was I was going to get in. I wanted to be a professional coach, and so after 2005, my last season, my wife was pregnant with the twins, and my plan was just take like a year off, and then I was going to get back into coaching. Well, man, when you have 3 kids, it's kind of hard just to get up and leave for 8 months of the year, right?
Yeah.
So I just stayed home, and then what happened was I bought an orange grove with a buddy of mine, and one thing led to another, and I've been doing it for like 15 years now. So it's a cool career.
How many acres do you got to manage?
Oh, jeez, I couldn't even thousands.
Yeah,
thousands.
enough.
Enough. All the way from Maricopa up to Madeira. So yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Gives you plenty of time to go watch AJ and your kids play, right?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts too.
Yeah. Shoot. I mean, you have to. I mean, driving that truck
Your
from
dad-
one,
your dad knows,
from one field to another, man, you're on the road a lot. You get a lot of
Exactly.
steps in.
For sure.
What are your go-to podcasts?
I listen to Rogan a lot. I listen to a lot of comedian podcasts. Freakonomics is one of my go-tos
Okay,
at times. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. What else is there? My wife throws me a true crime one every now and
true
then.
crime.
Yeah,
There
she'll
we
throw
go.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good ones. I started listening to a couple of Modern Wisdom with Chris Willing. It's really good.
Okay.
And then the Huberman Lab with
Yeah,
Andrew Huberman. It's really good.
It is good. It is good.
Like longevity and
I
all
feel
that
guilty
stuff.
listening to it a lot though, so I'll turn it off after a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. you can only listen to it so much.
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff.
Well, I mean, as this comes, to a closing, and things like that, it's like, I always like asking questions that involve the parent athlete, because that's what I deal with, right?
Yeah.
I deal with the parent and the athlete and things like that, I train AJ, right? When AJ was coming, to me, he was on the scrawnier end, and he was being introduced to the weights and things like that, Did you ever work out like heavy and hard and things like that throughout your career or anything?
I started. Yeah. We had a strength coach every off season. Lived in Fresno with Steve Sabonia, was the Fresno State strength and conditioning coach.
Nice.
We worked out with him 5 days a week. Yeah.
Okay.
High school, I didn't really start lifting weights until my senior year. We did some stuff at home.
Sure,
But
yeah.
nothing was organized, right?
Right.
Until I went and saw Sabo up in Fresno. That's when things got organized. I understood more of the kind of, So, no, it was always
You've always been a person who's been really well intact with their body. Sleeping, hydration, maybe nutrition, or
my
am I wrong?
nutrition's always been good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always eaten pretty well. I got vices, but I eat pretty well.
Yeah, but tell me though, like, how has that played a good role for you throughout your career? Because I mean, obviously, we're fighting kids that eat Snicker bars, and that's all they eat, throughout the day and stuff like that.
If you're a child and you see your parents eating that way, you're going to eat that way.
Yeah.
They're not going
Right.
to discipline their kids on that, right?
Right.
And that's the one thing you got to talk to them. Listen, if this is what you want, if you want to be an athlete, you can't do that, right? You can do it every now and then, but you don't have to be so strict and disciplined that you're just going to derail, but you have to freaking eat right. You got to fuel your body properly. You got to feel good. If you're gaining weight during the season, you're probably doing something wrong.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you feel good, you look good, you play good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
That's a good way to put it.
It's it's sad, but I mean, it all starts with the parents,
Yeah.
It all starts with them.
Yeah, I know. I mean, AJ was pretty, things that he would tell him, protein, all this type of stuff. So yeah,
He gets a little wonky sometimes, but
Sure.
he's 6'5" and he can
Yeah,
get away
he
with
get
a
away
little
with
bit.
it,
But,
yeah.
but he's also still growing, right? And so that kid can put it down.
Yeah.
He can put it. I can't wait. He's on a meal plan at Baco. We'll see how that plays. It's going to save Mom and I a lot of money, I think.
That's
Yeah,
good though,
yeah.
man. Structure. That's all it is. You just
It's
got to create
structure.
yourself some structure, like you're talking about
For
in the
sure.
beginning. Yeah, that's
And living with Brant was good because that guy was as disciplined. But what's funny, go back to real quick. We started working out like in the 93, right? And so we saw a dietitian. You know what the pyramid they gave us was? 70% carbs, 20% protein, 10% fat.
That's
So we're drinking grape juice, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, look at all the carbs in this stuff.
Bread and-
bread,
it's
and
all that stuff.
Top ramen.
Yeah.
There's some fat in that, but we joke years later. I said, man, could you imagine how freaking shredded we would have been if we actually ate properly?
Right.
It's amazing how things have changed.
you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you would have known though, that would have.
Yeah.
we were working out 4 hours a day, man. It was crazy.
That's
But I mean, everything's come so far, though.
So
It's
far.
crazy.
So far.
With like rehab,
exercise,
nutrition.
science, everything.
Well, you know what I learned a lot? So AJ and I went to this, it's called the Texas Baseball Ranch. I don't know anything about pitching. He's new at pitching, right? So he's
Right.
just learning. And this is like, there's so much science behind pitching on like how to take care of yourself. It's amazing. Like they would show if you have certain mechanics off, you're going to hurt this part of your arm. If your mechanics are here, you're going to hurt this part of your arm. It's fascinating, man.
Yeah, they got you all patched up with these wires. It's crazy,
Dude, it's really
it's
cool.
insane.
Yeah.
Science is evolving.
And you don't see a lot of rotator cuff injuries anymore. You see a lot of elbows. They say elbows is going to happen, but you're back in a year and a half in an elbow.
With surgery,
stronger.
it's just like knees.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
Yeah,
but shoulders are. I mean, they do such good exercises now to keep your shoulders strong. You don't see a lot of rotator cuff issues.
It's going to go.
Yeah,
I mean, how can you throw max effort season after? And guess how you do it though? Like look at Jason Verlander. You know what I mean? He's a smaller dude, but he can hum a ball. But he's had longevity.
Dude, he's like 6'6".
Right. Well, but you know,
he's lean.
He's lean.
Yeah.
He's lean. You know what I mean? But he's had so much longevity because he works his ass off.
And he worked at this place where AJ and I went. He worked with the guy. Yeah. And so he'd help him like rehab. And it's cool, man. It was very enlightening. I was talking to Bryant Brown about it a while back. He said the science in pitching has evolved so much where the science of hitting hasn't evolved nearly as much.
Really?
You know? But if you think about it, how does it?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? How does it? They quantify spin rate now and this and that. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, just the data that they're able to collect and utilize nowadays.
Well, we used to call. Did you play baseball?
Not really. Not through high school.
So you remember playing where guys would they would throw 87, but it seemed like 94, right? It's like we called it a sneaky fastball.
Right.
They understand why now. It's the spin rate and the efficiency of how the ball spins, so you can actually work on it, right? It's pretty it's pretty fascinating to me.
And it's like the live data they're getting right then and there.
Coming
like you're coming out of the into the dugout. They have everything right there.
Yeah. All those TrackMan and stuff, they can tell you the axis in which your ball's spinning and hitting. All they know is launch angle and who cares about that, right?
Yeah, it's great. Whether it's baseball or football, whatever. Like they're coming off the sidelines, they're watching it. Live.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's like crazy.
The game's evolved, man.
Yeah.
See where it goes from there.
So, we've talked a lot about failure and what it takes, and what are 2 to 3, I guess, traits you believe it takes, whether they're an athlete, it don't matter what sport they're in, right? And in life in general, but what are 2 to 3 traits you believe someone has to possess in order to achieve a certain level of success? Like non-negotiables, like you need to have these. And everyone's different.
For sure.
But what are some things you think you need to have this?
I mean, I think it'd be just too cliche to say work hard, right? I think that's granted. You got to work. If you're not going to work, you're going to.
Even if you have talent.
I don't know, man. I think somebody needs to figure out what's more important for them. Is it the need to succeed or the fear to fail? And I think people are different, right? I think people are different, but you have to have one or two of those and they have to burn pretty deep. Would you agree?
I'd agree.
100%.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people say, no, you need to want to win. A lot of people, when I say fear to fail, it's not fear to try new things and not be successful at them. It's once you're doing something, I better freaking bust my ass or I might fail at this. Right?
Scares you.
It scares you. You want to be scared. When you started this whole thing, right? You had to have been afraid.
I lost sleep.
And that drove you probably more than, man, I'm going to be successful. Right. And I think that has to be there with whether it's athletes, whether it's people in the professional world. I think you have to have something like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Say that again. What you just said right now before you said all that. What
Can
was?
we rewind this thing? I don't know.
Replay.
Well, I mean, the fear to
the fear to succeed. What's more important, the fear to succeed or the need to succeed or the fear to failure? But I think you need one of those. I think you need one of those, and both of them, they have to run. You have to be passionate about that.
Yeah.
They have to put a fire in your belly.
Yeah, I like that.
I was always better than I thought I was until I got to a certain age.
Almost everybody thinks that,
But dude, there's a lot of kids that think they're so good and they're really not, right? I have a good friend, one of my best friends. He's the most confident person you'll ever meet. And he's been successful. There's nothing he doesn't think he can do. But there's not too many people like him.
Yeah.
Right? Most people are a little, but they have to have one of those.
Right.
You can't just be in the middle.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle, you're just going to suck it.
No gray
You're not going to
area.
do anything.
I think that's a common trait. If you look at highly successful people, they're never satisfied.
No.
It's never good enough.
No, it's you never look at like, look what I did yesterday.
No.
It's never that. And you can't have that, right? I mean, there's times to celebrate things. And I think as a parent, that's something that I'm not very good at as a parent, is like celebrating the small wins. I know in the corporate world where they talked about celebrating the small wins. I'm like, screw that. Let's go on to the next
What's
thing.
next?
What's next, right? there's probably a balance there, and I don't really have that balance.
I mean, you really don't. I mean, there's no such thing as balance when you're trying to be great.
For sure.
It's either 0 to 100 or you're going to leave that door open like we talked about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
if I did something pretty good today, I'm not going to go celebrate it.
Yeah.
That's not my personality. I'm going to say, okay, what can I do next? Right. You know?
It could get a little tricky though.
For sure.
You know what I
dude.
mean? Because I fell into that, you know what I mean? Where you just, all right, what's next? And
I agree.
You kind of, then you lose life.
No,
you lose a little bit.
Then you're an overthinker on everything, right? And when you start overthinking everything, then it creates some issues, right?
It gets a little harmful.
It does.
You know?
No, it really does.
That's like the last podcast with Bear, I told him, you know, I have this kind of a saying, you can't be two great things at once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just hope to be around supportive people while you're trying to be great.
Exactly.
You know, because if not, it gets a little dark.
Exactly.
It gets a little, and I shouldn't even say a little, it gets a lot of bit of lonely.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know what, the other thing I was thinking about this the other day is like, as a parent, you want your kids to have a plan A and a plan B. But if you're that person, you can't have a plan B.
No.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But as a parent, I'm like, all right, dude, I put all your eggs in this basket, but what if this doesn't work out? And
Right.
that's my job as a parent, to think that and maybe not tell him, hey, you need a plan, or any of my kids, you need a plan B.
Right.
But as a parent, you want one. Right?
Yeah.
But I didn't have a plan B.
Right.
Right. And if somebody would have told me to have a plan B, I'd tell them to
Buzz off.
Yeah, get out of here. I don't have a plan B.
Yeah.
You know, I'll figure it out when it comes.
That right there.
That's a great way to look at it.
Those are the type of people that are truly successful. I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The people that say that,
For sure.
oh my, those are my kind of people, to be honest with you. You know, it gave me a little bit of chills because those are how my mentors are.
Mm-hmm.
We'll figure it out, Zach.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, we're not careless. We're not going in there blind.
Exactly.
But we'll figure it out.
I don't have the answer right now.
Yeah, but I'll get it.
Yeah.
But it's that mentality of like being confident enough, like when things are just crazy chaotic and you're looking far ahead, it's like there's a lot that needs to get done to accomplish that. But at the end of the day, you're confident enough, like, I'm going to figure it out. I know I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah. And you can't look at the big picture when you're going through it. Or I shouldn't say, you can't look at the whole list.
You'll get
right?
overwhelmed.
It's too much. It's too much.
One step at a time.
Let's baby step it a little bit.
Yeah, being able to operate in chaos is that
sure.
That is one of the blessings of a trait.
I was
going to
touch on one thing real quick. When you talked about kind of like celebrating those little wins, I think that's important. But I was also kind of thinking about those people that have the high level of success and they're trying to achieve stuff up here, whether it's in the corporate world, you know, like Elon Musk, whether it's trying to play professional baseball. It's like some of those things, like you expect to achieve that. So I'm not going to celebrate something I expect to achieve.
That's kind of what I was.
Does that make sense?
That's exactly how I feel. That's my point.
You've already seen it.
It's expected.
You're visionary.
In your head, like you're not telling people that, but in your head, your mind, like, I expect that. So I'm not going to go celebrate that because that's an expectation for me. There's more to accomplish.
You know, it's funny. Gosh, I wish I remembered the exact story, but this was only like a few weeks ago. AJ and I was thinking about, I just saw something about celebrate small wins again, right? It comes up every now and then.
Right.
And I don't, like I said, and I tried to do something like that with AJ, and he looked at me, he's like, it's expected, Dad.
Yeah.
That's the mentality.
Perfect.
Yeah. No, it's true. You know, when I train the athletes in here and they tell me, you know, that they got the EYL, whatever it is, you know, this achievement, I'm like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I know the effort you're putting in.
Yeah.
I know the work that you've already gone through is like, all right, let's go.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that goes back to, you know, preparation and the work, you know what I mean? And things like that, to where if you put enough preparation in something, you get rewarded for it. I saw it already coming.
And I think going back to kind of what we talked about with as a parent, how to direct your children, right? And you say if they're prepared, then they're going to be successful.
Right.
The problem is a lot of these kids don't understand what preparation actually is. Now they think they're prepared,
right,
but they don't really know what preparation is. Right. They think they work hard, but they really don't know what it means to work hard. You got to get around some grinders to know what it works out. The Brant Browns of my life, right? Oh, okay, maybe I'm not working hard.
Yeah.
Because if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of guys who you get an elite thinker and he looks down at these people, they're just a bunch of mushmouth, mediocre people, but they think they're working hard because that's all they're surrounding themselves with.
That's all they know.
That's all they know.
That's all they know.
And you can't have that. And so as a parent, you got to kind of recognize that, I think.
Right. No, you have to.
Unless you're one of those. And then you'll never...
And be able to recognize complacency as well.
Exactly.
It happens and people don't even know it.
No, for sure.
And
we all go through it.
We all do.
We all do.
Yeah. I have, like I mentioned, two mentors that I talk to about business. I don't know shit about business. You know what I mean? Like nothing. but I'm getting it little by little, you know, and things like that.
But I bet you know more right now than you knew 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Like by tenfold.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, I kind of try to save my moments that I see them, because when I see them, it's a humbling experience. You know, they make me feel stupid, but they also praise me at the same time, to where it's like, okay, I'm going to beat you up a little bit, but I'll bring you back. Just hear me out for a second.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it goes back to being around those type of people that could set you straight after they already beat you up.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
No.
You got to be around those type of people.
Sure.
You know, and you just got to come with it with an open mind.
Yeah, and you can't get offended.
You can't get
your
offended.
feelings hurt. It might suck. You got kicked in the mouth today, but you know what?
Yeah.
Man,
But how can you be offended by somebody who's done it and better than you still currently, you know?
sure.
But again, it goes back to mindsets and a little bit of being immature and things like that.
You guys need to get a psychologist in here, and then we'll all come back together and kind of figure this thing out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
It is.
It really is.
You know.
That's awesome. I have just one last question. You talked a lot about a lot of different people on here, parents and you know, Brent Brown and different coaches that you played for. Who do you think is like the one or two people that had the greatest impact on you?
Craig Wallenbrock, baseball. Let's just talk baseball. Just
yeah,
baseball
yeah.
wise. Craig Wallenbrock probably had the biggest impact on me. He was the guy that I said this drafted me. Google him. He's
Okay.
He's very, very popular in the baseball world. He's got about probably 5 of his guys that he worked with that are now major league hitting coaches. And I hit with him from 16 years old till I was 30, right? Every offseason.
Wow.
That's half my life.
No, exactly. So he was super important in my life. And my dad, in the sense, dude, if you knew my dad, it just chill, right? And I don't quite have his chill. I get excited about things, but it's good to have that kind of just, hey, it's going to be okay.
Calm, cool, collected.
We've never been rich, right? Never been rich. He did okay as he got.
Sure.
But it was like, you freak out about it. He goes, son, it's only money. And now it's easy. That can be offensive to some people. I get that.
Right.
But his thought, because he grew up dirt poor. And his like, listen, don't sweat the small
Where'd he
stuff.
grow up at?
Right.
So he born in Nebraska, grew up in like early Mart area, lived in Ducor a little bit. And then, yeah. Then he became a CEO of a company in like a great
He
co-op
worked
deal.
his way up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good deal.
Yeah. I mean, you had this and that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of baseball mentors. That guy named Carl Keel, who wrote the book with Harvey Dorfman, he's since passed away too. He and I hit a lot together one off season, and I was in the Dominican Republic, and he had missing finger and threw me like a left-handed cutter all the time, and it really dialed me in, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
You got that one finger, that missing finger. It was hard to hit, but
That's cool,
it
man.
helped me a lot. So,
That's really cool.
there was a lot. So
Yeah. Well, you have anything that?
No, man. I mean, I could go forever. To be
Yeah,
honest
I
with you. We could do this for hours, to
it's
be
fun.
honest
I
with
enjoy
you.
this.
But no, I mean that's a lot of useful information right there.
Yeah. No,
Without
thanks,
a doubt.
Steve.
yeah.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day.
Anytime,
I know you're
guys.
busy.
anytime.
And talking with this was fun.
Yeah,
it was
always
a good
is.
time.
Had a
Yeah.
good time. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Yep. That's this is everybody. Steve Cox. Thank you for joining us,
thanks
and
for
thank you
having
for
me.
making the time to come down and chit chat with
We'll
us
do it
and
again
things like
sometime.
that.
Yeah, definitely.
absolutely.
We'll have to make it happen again.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.